And going live now.
Welcome, everyone, our beautiful listeners, to the Stephen King podcast. We are here and we are ready to discuss the end of Gunslinger, the first Dark Tower book. We're excited. Thomas, how are you feeling?
I am feeling good and finished the book that we're reading. And I am ready to discuss the things in the book. That's what we do here on the Hot Book Sluts. I'm Thomas. And now to someone who's not Thomas.
Hello. I am not Thomas. How are all the subscribers out there? Hello, Carrie. Hope you're enjoying this.
Hello, Misha. Give some shout outs.
Yeah.
Nick. He's in there.
Oh yeah.
If he's
Oh,
watching.
So has
Absolutely.
Nick watched our show? I feel like that's a long shot.
Yeah, that feels like a long shot to me.
Now I hope he does. He's like, you're right. I would never have watched that if you had forced me to.
I would be proud. I would be very proud. Let's just say
I was talking with it was actually interesting because like by some weird like Stephen King like multi-universe coincidence. So I'm talking with Carrie in the office and she's like, "Yeah, I literally like I'm at the end of the Gunslinger right now." And I'm just like,
that
"Wait,
was so
what?"
wild. She had her book in the office.
Why
and I
is
was
she
like,
not on the podcast?
I know. It was like, wait, she should be a member.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
I
That's a good point.
mean,
Yeah.
if she wanted to.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's a commitment, but yeah, I mean, if she wants to,
It is,
that'd be
yeah.
cool.
Well, there's certainly no obligation, and
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah,
anybody could even like jump in or jump out if they so choose.
yeah,
So if we
yeah,
wanted to have somebody join for a book, and then you're like, I'll pass on the next one. That's fine.
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
committed. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
committed.
I like that idea, though.
I do.
that's a
Actually, I
good
really do
idea.
like that idea. I
I
don't know
have
that
a
we've ever
friend
talked
who's
about
an
that.
aspiring author, and I told her about this, and she was like, "If I like get finished, will y'all read my book and have me on?" And I was like, "Fuck yes, friend!" And this is like before we
Yes.
even
Oh my.
started our first episode. And
Really?
she's a lovely friend,
Oh,
very
nice.
smart. I'm really excited. I've read a little bit of it, like just a bit of a chapter,
Yeah,
but yeah. So if she finishes it and lets me know, we can talk about that.
I would absolutely love to do that and then talk about it, and
yeah,
our viewers can hear about it and they can read it.
that'd be cool.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm assuming she's hoping to get it published, right?
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's
Nice.
super cool.
What was
Cool.
interesting to me is so Carrie was at the end of Gunslinger and she's like, "Wow, that was a weird one."
I did hear her say that
Yeah.
it's definitely one of the weirder ones. And I was like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
She's also reading well, I don't know if it's the original version, but at least not the revised one that I think we were reading. So it's
Hmm.
probably even weirder.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this too,
Um,
that like this could be a bit that we do, like Stephen King fans in the wild. Like when we find people who like Stephen King,
It's
we tell
exciting.
our viewers about it and each other about our experiences.
Absolutely.
I love it.
What was interesting to me is I kind of like snuck it off her desk and started going through it.
Just to
Did
sort
she
of
take
see if you could pick out differences.
Yes.
her
Well,
smells
Sorry.
lightly of
it's been
lavender?
revealed to the world now that Jeremy took it off her desk.
Oh,
Briefly.
she
Briefly.
she wasn't going to know that I went through it. That book was trashed. Like it was
Unless she
25
watches
years
this,
old.
in
Yeah.
She will
which
know
case she
now.
will absolutely
She
know.
will know now, as the rest of the world, or at least our viewers will.
Because I was like, does it have the number 19? So I opened it up because remember
Oh
how you
yeah.
It's fair,
mentioned
yeah.
the
Yeah,
number
it was
19?
like on one of the
Where
first few pages.
yeah, where is it? Like
It
where's
was
it
okay, so it's after
posted?
the intro. And you said that there was no intro, right?
It's right
Or
Yeah,
before
no
the
or no
numbered pages
forward?
where it says
yeah, so that's
19
missing.
Yeah.
presumption.
So
There's
where
an
it says
intro.
19?
then there's a forward, and then just its own page, the number
Yeah.
19. And then on the other page, resumption, if you can
That wasn't in there either. So it
see
doesn't say
that. Yeah.
19. It doesn't say resumption. It didn't have the forward, none of that. And
Interesting.
I
Well, so the forward, I feel like the forward, and the, gosh, what words am I thinking of here? The introduction, that makes sense that it's not in there, because he talks about changing stuff and like
Oh
from the
yeah.
original version and being
Yeah.
like 19 when he first wrote it or something.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
But
It almost seemed like an apologetic in like an aggressive way.
yeah,
Like
actually.
King went back and was like, "Oh, there's some things about this I don't like." Hmm.
I was so young
On
and
being
naive.
19,
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
Stephen King.
It's not my fault.
And then everybody read it and they were like, yes, I was 19 once too.
Anything I ever wrote when I was 19 or before that is embarrassing and shameful. So I get it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, what was even funnier is there's like this little excerpt like in the very beginning of her version that's not in ours, and it was like, follow the gunslinger as he travels through the desert and meets the sexually ravenous Alice and the mysterious man in
Oh,
black. And I was like, whoa.
Time out. Did it say Alice?
Yeah,
did
I'm
it?
pretty sure
Yeah.
it said Alice.
That almost sounds like a
Are they typos? What's happening?
Wait,
oh,
is
that's
it?
right.
Wait,
Because her name is
Their name is
what is her?
Allie in this version, but there's 2 or
oh,
3
that's right.
instances, I wrote them down, where he refers to her as Alice.
You're correct though, because we talked about that in, well, not the last meeting, but the one before, when I was the last meeting
Yeah.
I was in, where he does say Alice, I think at least twice
Yeah,
at
in
2
my
different
version,
points.
page 151,
Oh.
and I
You're
know I wrote
correct.
down the other.
So in that version there's Alice as well. I wonder if he says Alice in the same 2 points.
Huh.
In That's interesting.
Why?
The only was
Huh.
Page 103, that's the other one.
gosh, Hanya. My cat
Funny, it's
is
like, I'm a kitty.
yeah, she's like, look, ask me questions about the Gunslinger.
With kibble. Write them out in kibble.
And tortilla chips. That's we're gonna stray here from the conversation, but that's her favorite food is
Stray.
huh. That's her favorite food is tortilla chips. It's quite strange.
Does she like lick the salt off of them, or does she crunch
Oh
them?
no,
And is she
she'll
good
eat.
at it? Because
She'll
my
eat
cat
the
sucks
chip.
at eating things. He
No,
like breaks it apart with his fangs and it falls. And he's like,
she's quite good at eating things. Now we'll break off like a little, kitty-sized piece for her, not just like a whole chip. But so she
miserable.
loves salty snacks in general, but her favorite is tortilla chips. Yeah, well, I mean, I also do too. So I get where she's coming from.
Yeah.
You're just so cute. Sorry.
No. We could have a whole, like, let's just focus on Ponyo for about 10 minutes, honestly.
I mean, we could.
I'd be happy to do
We
that.
could have a Ponyo. Look, it is a movie, and it's a great movie. We could just sort of
Mhm.
have a one-off meeting that is about
Yep.
the movie and then about my cat.
I like the idea of us watching the movie and your cat's like there, like in the frame, like, with us.
It's
And we watch the movie and do dialogue and commentary as if Ponyo's character was a cat, and us being like, man, cats underwater, that's crazy that they can do stuff like this. Like,
oh my god, yeah.
Hmm.
And then she became a
Hmm.
girl. It's like the cutest movie ever.
I
Anyway,
I
yeah,
kind
please
of
go ahead.
oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine.
I kind of like the fact that we just stumbled across like what might be some secret, because I just so happen to say Alice and like take a peek at that like unrevised version, and now I'm
Right.
so curious to get my hands on the unrevised version again and see why the name would have changed.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling, I mean, I just don't know if it's a typo, but it could be. I feel like King is just so deliberate with
Hmm.
maybe it is typo though. But all of the revisions that the book has had, didn't you say
Mhm.
there's quite a few revisions actually? Or maybe
Uh,
just printings. Maybe not necessarily revisions, but it's just been printed a bunch of different ISBN numbers
yeah,
and stuff.
I think the stand had 3 revisions where you kept updating the date, but,
Yeah,
with Gunslinger, I feel like there was only 1 revision, but then probably,
maybe
like,
just the number of printings that
14.
they, yeah,
Yeah.
publications. Yeah. Well, okay. So then I guess just one revision. But I mean, surely when he would have gone back and revised it and then, he's got I don't know how publishing books works. But what is the name of the people who also read through it to make sure
The
everything is
editor?
correct? Thank you, the editor. Um, I feel like they would have caught that, but maybe not. I don't know.
Also, I looked it up online, and there's this Dark Tower wiki, and it says on the character like wiki page, it says Alice, and then it has a quote. It says, "I got an itch I used to be able to take care of. Now I can." Quoted Allie. And then the first line is
Right.
Alice, nicknamed Allie, is the proprietor and bartender of the bar Shivs. But that I feel like just doesn't address it. Like it addresses it in a way that I find unsatisfying.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
don't remember
because
it saying that. I thought her name was like Allison and she goes by Allie, but
hmm,
maybe I just am totally misremembering that.
Young Augusta. It's
maybe
deeper than that. It's a conspiracy. It has to
It
be.
has to.
I I have a conspiracy theory. Maybe when he started writing it, he was so young, he made a mistake and forgot the name of the character.
Good. I could see
Let
that.
it be
Yeah.
that, because that'd be awesome.
Actually, really. And then he revised it and he was like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep it. It's been so long like this.
Like
Why not?
nobody will ever notice. They won't be preoccupied thinking about this.
They'll never have a podcast discussing this for 10 minutes.
Um, I did. Some people online were saying that since it was one of the first series that he did, like it was pretty early on, there are like various mistakes that you can find in there. Like apparently he uses words incorrectly
Yeah.
and like geography's messed up. So I don't know.
Okay, so I did have a feeling in this. I remember him saying they were moving, like the gunslinger and Jake were moving southeast, but then by the end of the book he's supposed to be going west to to so that really confused me. So that would
Hmm.
check out with the weird directions. And but then I'm not sure if that if I just missed something, but I swear they were moving southeast, heading toward the mountains, and then they go through that like train tunnel or whatever.
Hmm.
And then by the time he comes out, Jake is gone, and he has that long discussion with the gunslinger, or the Man in Black, and the Man in Black tells him he needs to go west. And you're like, well, but it made it sound like he continued on in the direction that he'd been going, which was not west, was southeast.
Huh.
I was like,
Okay.
How'd
because
I
then
miss that?
if he was going west, he would just go back the same way he came,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
seems
Yeah.
counterintuitive. I don't know. So I thought that was interesting.
Maybe that's what the people were referring to. Um,
Yeah, it could be. I'm not sure if I just totally missed misread, how they were moving across the land, basically. That's possible, but I did get kind of
Yeah,
confused by that.
I mean, it makes a point
I
early on of being like, he's going southeast. He always goes southeast. He never
Right.
didn't go
He always
southeast.
moves this way. Yeah. Yeah. And then at the end, I mean, they had such a long discussion. Which, by the way, that discussion was quite interesting. I felt like I was back in philosophy class.
I I think I think both of you caught the mistake because I don't think I made that up. I remember distinctly being on like a fan board and reading
Okay.
like, they were like apparently he uses words incorrectly, and then they were also saying like landmarks and like directions were like all like
Okay.
topsy-turvy. So
Okay. So I found where that would make sense. It's not just me then.
mhm, mhm.
That's good. Sometimes I come across those and I'm like, is my reading comprehension not as am I just not picking up what they're writing down? And I'm like, great. Now I've all turned around. But he says the man in black told him again that he must go to the sea, which lay no more than 20 easy miles to the west. And there he would be invested with the power of drawing.
Hmm,
But the way that it's said doesn't make it sound like go back the way that you came, because that's got to be more than 20 miles that he went across the
right.
desert and through the mountains and like so I think it's 20 more miles and you'll reach the sea. Well, especially because remember when he was in Tull, he was asking a couple of people there what is beyond the mountains, and they didn't really know. And I think maybe one person speculated the sea, but they weren't sure. Um, so that would make sense. But in the beginning of the book, it says he's heading southeast.
Yeah, I can see
Uh,
some like weird geography where like the land did this, and like you could
Right.
if you're heading directly southeast, and then backtrack
Yeah.
and hit. But like, yeah, that just
Yeah, I was
seems
trying to
bad.
think about it and I was like, I don't really quite know how that works out, but
do
sure.
you do you guys want me to post like an image of the map of Midworld or no?
Oh, you can, but actually this book has two maps
Oh,
at the
really?
very beginning. Yeah.
Oh.
It says that they are maps from the Gunslinger Born, the first of the Marvel Dark Tower graphic novels, which is really cool.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So this is and Thomas, you probably have this too, right?
No, I don't think I do.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
my copy doesn't have
Yeah,
that.
this is like it's like a glossy page, like what you would find in a graphic novel,
Oh,
which is
wow.
actually
I've-
actually really really cool.
oh, wow.
That is
Can
cool.
you kind of move it over a little bit? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, wow. No, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
me
I
neither.
looked at that for a while when or before I first started reading,
Huh.
which is kind of cool.
Hmm.
I'll see if I can like take a picture of it, send it.
Hmm.
You guys can see it better. Please spring out. Yeah, let me hold it up back to the camera and
Yeah, please do.
use your magnifying glass. That's hilarious.
That's so weird that you guys have like the same copy of the book and then one has the
I
map and
know.
then one doesn't.
Yeah, and like
That's
maybe
it
I
is
ate
really
the
strange.
page. I could see me doing that, but I
You
don't
ate
remember
it?
doing that.
Huh.
Glossy texture pages are my favorite ones to eat.
So smooth going down.
Yeah, it's so funny because when I think back to the first time I read The Gunslinger, my memory of the story starts at the drawing of the three, the second book.
Hmm.
I totally
Ah.
forgot about like I remembered the flashbacks and remembered the walk to the desert, and I remember the first line of the book, and I guess forgot a lot of this. And when I
Huh.
got to the conversation the gunslinger had with the man in black, I think I don't remember it because not having read the series yet, there's so it was hard for me to hold on to that part of it and reference it again. But reading through it, man, like there's so many things that are foreshadowed. And even having like read it, even though it was a long time ago, there's a lot of distance between what they say to each other in the conversation and being able to comprehend it in a way that is meaningful. Not to say that it was bad, though I wouldn't call the conversation great because it leaves you confused, and that's probably on purpose. Like I think it's supposed to do that. Because even having read it, after reading this the second time now, I just got to the end and was like, whoa, like that's so beyond what I'm able to comprehend as far as the scope of the series, especially right now.
Right.
And I'm, excited to read through it and hopefully be able to understand that conversation better.
Right.
I feel like I'm going to want to reference back to it.
Yeah. I felt like, so going through the Gunslinger, I think we kind of touched on this last time we talked about it. The world felt very small. Like not a lot of people in it to begin with, but then just somehow like physically small, even though it's probably not. We sort of have come to the conclusion that it is a version of our world that seems to just be sort of falling apart and breaking apart at the seams. But it just feels very small because there's only a few locations talked about. It doesn't seem to be many people around. But then by the end, so I'm reading it and I'm thinking, just not. You kind of think, well, I don't know how you can turn this into a whole. Like, how is this going to be a whole series, right? But then by the end, you're like, holy crap, it's actually huge. Like this is huge.
That's a really interesting thought. That's a interesting way of looking at it. I'm surprised I didn't get that comparison to like the world is small and is broken and can't even sustain a large amount of people, to the rantings of the Man in Black being like, it's all about size, man. Like this universe is big.
He was smoking some weed over there. It's all about size, man. The Democrats, yeah. The Tower Man.
Levels, bro.
Yeah, so by then it's like, okay, there's all these worlds. There's a bunch of them. So then it was okay, there's a lot of possibilities. There's so much that can it just opens up, like it opens up so much more. So it made it really, really exciting. But there definitely were a lot of points where I was like, I don't even know what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep reading. But I enjoyed it though. I still enjoyed it as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's intentional. At least that's what I hope it is that we're supposed to be lost.
So, yeah. You are sort of just thrown into this world too that seems like our world in some ways, but then in many ways not at all. So you're just oh gosh. You're just thrust into it, and so you sort of have to try to make sense of it immediately. Hi. She's purring now.
Yeah, and I remember taking notes throughout the beginning part of the book, and as I'm reading the conversation with the Man in Black, I didn't take any notes because I was like, this is too, like, there's too many thoughts. Like you're overcome, like constantly, like every next thing you read in their conversation has implications. And I feel like you learn a lot about what the tower is, because you find out that it's this structure at the center of creation whose levels are existences. So that's breaking news as far as the story goes.
I thought that was so cool, that concept. That's wild.
Yeah.
To me.
And I like the idea that like it's not just like, oh, it's crazy and like, oh, there's worlds behind our worlds right next to you all the time. And like, yes, that's the case, but the tower brings an order to it. Like it really gives the multi-dimensional verse like an end goal.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think what the Gunslinger's sort of quest at the beginning at least is to destroy the tower, right? Is that, or at least to find the tower? He's following the Man in Black, but I think ultimately he's trying to destroy the tower or at least find it. But then he learns all of this new information from the Man in Black, and you're like, well, hold on, you can't just destroy it. I mean, you could, but you're gonna like destroy your existence as long as everybody else's existence, at least I think. Yeah.
Also, I didn't.
At least nobody wants to see your butt.
That was good. I didn't expect such a civil and instructive conversation with the Man in Black,
Yeah,
or
not at
for
all.
it to be received as like well as it was. And he does mention when it's near the end that the Gunslinger says, probably a lot of that was lies, but that's why they were good lies, is there
Right.
was a little bit of truth.
Yeah.
But it's definitely weird for you to be pursuing this Man in Black. And he does mention, like, I'm going to ask him questions, but it almost seems instructional, their conversation.
What was interesting to me is that concept of like how time is warped for them.
Yeah.
So they would make references like several times. They're like, maybe I saw him 3 days ago. Maybe it was 3 weeks. Maybe I don't know.
I have no clue. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then he kind of Roland. I guess Roland falls asleep, and then when he wakes up, like it's just the Man in Black is just like a skeleton.
Oh yeah,
That
I
was fun.
totally
I really
forgot about
enjoyed
that.
that. He woke up and was like, oh.
Oh, I
Yeah,
totally forgot. And then he wakes up like 30 years older or something like that. I
yeah.
don't even
Yeah.
know how many years older. It's like great.
S-
He's just lost so many
So
years.
it's like time doesn't obey like the same
Right.
laws in his world. Like something crazy like that can happen.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, I did think that. I totally forgot about that. That is wild. And I don't know, but why is their world like that but not ours or another parallel, I don't, that's
Hmm.
kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know.
Like what about his world makes it so broken as
Makes it,
opposed to, like, other
yeah,
existences like Jake's, coming from
Hmm.
like modern
seemingly
Manhattan. And
80s
we know that
Manhattan.
world's
Yeah,
not fucked up. But, like, the only anomaly that we know about Jake's world, which seemed totally normal, was Jake's leaving it.
right.
Mhm. Hmm.
I still
Also,
wonder. Oh, sorry.
oh, no, you go ahead.
I was just, you're
You
talking
have the
about
cat.
Jake. Yeah. She automatically just takes over everything. Um, so you mentioned Jake, and I just had this brief thought, and I think we talked about this before too, but I sort of wonder, so he dies in his world and comes to the Gunslingers. Did he physically disappear? Did his soul leave his body and go to, you know what I mean? That's what I don't quite understand how that works, because he exists in the Gunslingers world. He can, I guess he can die. Oh, I don't know. Maybe he falls to his death, but maybe I don't think he actually falls to his death at the
Hmm.
end there,
I hope not.
because he falls and he says something about there are other worlds, but maybe I don't know if he shows up later again. I have no clue, but I kind of
He
feel like he will.
he did seem very nonchalant about dying. He was just like, "There's other worlds.
There's
See
other
ya."
world. I was like, yeah, well, especially because up to that point, he was so reluctant about continuing on with the Gunslinger. He wanted to run away at so many points
Mhm.
or stay
Mhm.
behind, or he would just get so angry at the Gunslinger for leading him along, only to his death. And then finally, he comes to his death, and he is very nonchalant about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he came to the realization that there are other worlds.
And they certainly made a
Uh,
point to,
yeah.
like, show that Jake had some type of supernatural sight or ability or sensitivity or
Mhm.
shining,
Oh, yeah.
because he
Oh
was able to
yeah.
Oh,
tell when the
yeah.
gunslinger had given into the reality that he had been told
Yeah.
that, like, in order for him to move forward, he had to sacrifice Jake. And
Yeah.
as soon as
That's
the
right.
gunslinger thinks about
Yeah.
that, that's when Jake picks up on it.
Right.
Um,
No,
Yeah.
you're right. Ooh, maybe he does have the shining.
So maybe something about his death, something that he experiences or sees, like comforts him and makes him accept that. But it was out
Yeah.
of character for him because he was freaking out when he got those insights and was like reading into the gunslinger's, lies that he was saying to him. And perhaps just the gunslinger lying kind of broke whatever magic the gunslingers have because they're supposed to be of the light.
Right.
But yeah, that was definitely weird that he was so worried and freaking out in a well-written way, like having to balance, I'm a kid and I can't survive, and this world is super harsh, especially right now in this
Mhm.
tunnel, but I have this weird premonition that like the sky is going to cause my death. And it conveyed that struggle in Jacob in a very good way to then get to his death where he's like, deuces, other worlds. So hopefully
Deuces.
that was on purpose as
Peace
well.
out. I'll find something better than you.
I like that. I like that.
Maybe my next friend won't sacrifice me.
Better not.
Better
Jake.
not.
Jake is
Yeah,
awesome.
he dies, but it's how like Japanese girls take pictures. They're like, "Bye."
Yeah.
See you in Middle Earth. It's probably not where he lands. It's probably not where he ends up.
Probably not. And if he does, though, hopefully it's in the Shire. Like, if you're going to end up anywhere in Middle Earth, you would want to end up in the Shire.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would, at
Exactly.
least.
They'll have like beer ready for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And
you
tons of
think you'd
food.
want to end up in Rivendell, but probably not. They'll probably just kill you.
I think they would probably just kill me. Yeah. Whereas the hobbits would be like, you're the large people, but you seem friendly enough. I guess. I don't know.
You look confused. Eat about it.
Yeah. Here's some beer and food. You'll be less confused.
I I agree with Thomas. I think now that I think about it, like when Thomas said that, I was like, you know what? He probably does have The Shining because that does
Yeah.
make a lot of
I
sense now that I think
yeah,
about it.
absolutely. I agree with that
I
too.
really feel like it was trying to convey that like Jake is able to
Uh-huh.
see things or understand things that aren't readily understood with some supernatural ability.
Yeah. Because he did pick up on a lot that wasn't explained.
Mhm.
Even the lingo, like
Mhm.
he was able to
Yeah,
understand.
that's true. He started understanding that and sort of losing his own, or understanding his own world, because he would come up with words that were from his world, but he wouldn't really quite remember what they were, what they meant, but he
Mhm.
just the word came to his mind. But he did seem to pick up on Roland's language,
Hmm.
in terms, and it's flipped basically, or it seems like it did.
I think one of the things I really want to know about as far as what you guys thought is what did you think of Randall Flagg now that we got to sit down and talk with him a bunch compared to the Randall Flagg that we know from The Stand?
He seemed very similar to the version from The Stand until the end. And then once you
Yeah.
get to the end, you're like, whoa.
Yes, yeah, absolutely agree.
And
He
even in that
seemed,
conversation, he kind of jumps back and forth between like the crazy Randall Flagg we know and the one that's like has a
yeah,
job to do and he's executing it. Because that was definitely the vibe I got. And I think he kind
Right.
of
yeah.
alludes to it too, that like this conversation is why he exists.
Hmm.
Right. And I don't remember him being so philosophical in The Stand. Uh,
Right.
Yeah.
so he was way more like rapey and I don't even, yeah.
I almost feel like this Randall Flagg is a more together Randall Flagg or an older Randall Flagg,
Oh, yeah.
who's been
Yeah.
around the block a few times
Mm,
or has assimilated more of his own memories from being the
Oh,
bastard and the place, and all the
yeah.
all the
yeah,
areas that was
Yeah.
his role.
I could see that.
Because he always in that conversation, he snapped to that different persona that we don't, Kitty. No, whenever he was talking about what he has to tell the gunslinger and who gave him the order to do it. And that's when he got serious, where he's like, let's talk about your boss. And he's like, no, fuck you. We're not talking about him.
Yeah.
He's scary to me. And that was like something that made me stop. And it didn't hit
Right.
me as in like a profound way. It hit me as just, I know now like how bad Randall Flagg is. I watched him become a demon and use magic. I watched him like be a crazy rapist who wanted to end the world. And he's being real serious about this and telling the gunslinger how to move forward, even to the point of instructing him of how to gain the magic that he's clearly using to fight the tower and Randall Flagg's boss, whoever
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
And it's so it's so interesting that like the trap is there. It has to be a trap, and the gunslinger knows it. I think
Yeah.
even Jake says at one point like, "This is like a trap or something like that.
I mean,
Like,
it
this
just
could be bad."
yeah, it very much
Uh,
feels like it
but
the whole way through. Yeah.
that's the only direction he has to go.
And he was sworn to follow. He has like committed his life to finding the Man in Black and following him, and finally he catches up with him and meets with him. So he doesn't, and he had, even the Oracle told him, I mean, Jake can live, but you have to just go back the way that you came and sort of forget your quest. And he couldn't even, I can't, I'm sworn. So
One of the things I didn't pick up on the first time I read was how he sacrifices his pet falcon? Hawk?
yeah,
Yeah,
his
Hawk.
falcon. Or
Oh,
is it?
falcon. Okay.
Well, they're very similar. So
uh, his pet bird. One of the things that struck me was how he sacrifices his pet to
yeah,
win the battle, and then in a very similar way sacrifices Jake to get the information that he wanted.
right.
And the first time I read it, I didn't pick up on that foreshadowing at all, which now it seems insanely obvious.
Right. I didn't really think about that either. I mean, obviously, I didn't know he was going to have to sacrifice. Well, I guess you don't really know he has to sacrifice Jake until he meets with the Oracle. I can't remember if he meets the Oracle first or if you learn about the fact that he sacrificed his. I can't remember which one of those comes first. But either
Yeah,
way, I didn't really
same,
think about that
same.
either, though. You're right. It is, yeah, it is interesting. It's kind of following the same pattern.
Yeah, like I think it's trying to paint this picture of like he's basically like a psychopath that's willing to sacrifice anything to get what he wants. So he's
Right.
not your he's definitely not the typical good guy that you normally find in a King novel.
No.
He seems very different from any sort of good
Yeah.
guy.
Right. I absolutely, and by the end, I definitely had the same feelings about the Gunslinger and had almost sort of mixed feelings by the end about the Man in
Hmm.
Black. Because he doesn't seem like your typical villain or evil
Yeah.
either.
Yeah,
So
he
Yeah.
almost seems reluctant. Like he
yeah,
would rather not be doing this.
right. But he's made to, so yeah.
Like forced to in some way, like
By
trapped in this.
whoever
Yeah.
his master is, which I'm very curious about that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I um I don't know about you guys, but I'm so curious about the Dark Tower at this point. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I can read anything else because I'm just like I need to know what's at the end of this series. Like
I
I
yeah, no, that's
yeah.
how I feel. I just want to
Okay.
continue.
Yeah,
I know
I'm
it's
ready to
a
like get to the drawing of the like I want to
yeah,
know the
Mhm.
story.
yeah.
Yes.
It's what, 6
Same.
books total, right?
I thought it was
Or is
8.
this 7?
I think the
8?
main series is 7, and there's an 8th that was released that's like subsidiary, like not necessarily in.
Oh,
Yeah.
But I haven't
okay.
read that 8th book, so.
Gotcha.
So in the series itself, there are well, I guess there's 7, but then there's The Wind Through the Keyhole, a Dark Tower novel, but it doesn't say it's the 8th
That's the
novel.
one I haven't read.
So there are 7.
Oh yeah, and I just remembered he talks
Little
about this
extra.
ageless stranger. So it's like he has a boss and this bad guy who's going to be in the way.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that guy. Whoever that is, that he will meet.
That is who he also won't talk about.
He's just ageless. A stranger. Yeah, I'm very
Interesting.
fascinated by this. It's a very cool concept.
Yeah, and it almost feels like King was the first person to do this with like books, right? Like this crazy shared universe. Like I can't think of who did it before him. I mean, obviously you have like serial type novels like Tarzan, you've got, Tarzan going on these various adventures, but that feels very, very different from this, where it's like unrelated books that are all tying together.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing I can really think of is like Marvel and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
multiverse.
right.
Which those comics, I'm not sure when, at least specifically, the multiverse came around in the comics.
That's interesting though, because
but
Brandon Sanderson, but he's modern. I can't think of anybody, but you're right. Comic book characters absolutely like
yeah,
are the things that like are most similar as far as the beats and scope of the story and the concept
yeah,
that there's other of the same being doing other things, and those stories can be
right,
explored.
yeah.
True, true. Did you guys want to talk about at all this time around?
Yeah,
I absolutely want to talk about her because I
I
just finished something
definitely do.
fucking
I think
incredible.
it was so good. Yeah, it was. I think we've got some time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
One second. I'm gonna do something.